beach is not only about rest, but also a good opportunity to try yourself as a treasure seeker. Yes, it's exactly where really strange things are found. Today, you'll assure yourself of this. In this episode, you'll see findings on the beach that shock the whole world. We start from the finding that perplexed not only locals that discovered it, but also scientists. While running along the beach, an American came across an unknown, but at the same time big object. At first, the man did not understand what it was, and he came closer for the sake of interest. There was a strange blue ball in front of him that obviously stood out against the background of different seashells, seaweeds, or stones. The man called everything that was around, and by joint forces, people tried to find out what it was. As you understand, they didn't manage to do this. The apple of the eye looked big and fresh at the same time. That's why the American put it into a cellophane pocket and took it home, after sending a photo to his acquainted experts. Nobody could understand what it was at a distance. That's why people from a laboratory came to the man soon and took the eye for research. The object was in the refrigerator. This is why all its natural features were preserved. What do you think it was? If it was a real eye, whom could it have belonged to? Write in the comments. While you're writing, we go further and take a look at another finding on the beach. It's not about a random object, but about a heap of rubbish. It's either some unknown shells or remnants of alien creatures. That's exactly what the man who found this wonder in 2023 thought of. As you understand, he did not manage to receive the answer, and he was forced to go home in entire ignorance and incomprehension with a sediment on his soul. After all, as they managed to find out later, the man discovered sea rafts. In essence, it's not a single organism, but a whole colony the size of not less than 4 inches. Over the basement of this colony, there was an asymmetrical bent sail in the shape of an S. Due to this blade, the colony received the corresponding name. By the way, it's exactly with the help of this sail that our guest was able to move along the water surface, not directly, but under a certain angle against the wind and periodically turn 180 degrees. So we've already dealt with this. But why did I say that the man was lucky? Because he was not taken aboard and they didn't take him away as far as possible? Of course, no. This all is because of the fact that sea rafts are very poisonous. Their diet is based on invertebrate juvenile fish that they're glad to catch with their tentacles and to paralyze with stinging cells. Enemies die. However, it seems to have no relation to us. If scientists are to be believed, these sea rafts' tentacles are not able to pierce skin. That's why its contact with a man will lead to nothing. Of course, if one has no open wounds or deep cuts. It's a giant found on the Antarctic shore that will not care about cuts. The monster was discovered due to a Google Earth app. This means it's real. After all, you can not fake a satellite photo. Who can that be? An alien? An ancient creature that's existed secretly from people for all this time? Maybe this is some abnormal mutant. If you have your own theories on this subject, share them in the comments without failure. Residents of Western Virginia managed to make sure that somebody huge lived on their land, and possibly not known to science. Random tourists came across this curious trace left on the shore. As you can notice, it was a giant trace. No one could have left it purely physically. It's a paradox, but animals are also not characteristic of such limb dimensions. Against this background, the most insane theories were put forward that do not exclude the existence of Bigfoot. What if this was the most real and freshest evidence in the direct sense of the word? The fact that the trace was left ashore proves that it's relevant. Its dimensions say that possibly it was a giant monster. There are few versions, but if you take into account that not so long ago, locals told us about a mysterious behemoth in their forest, the pieces of that puzzle will fall into place, and very soon, possibly, we'll get indisputable evidence that Bigfoot exists. Toothy monster. No, we'll not continue talking about Bigfoot. This is what the next unusual creature is called that was found on the beach in Spain if the comments of the author are to be believed. As far as I'm concerned, this is one of the most dreadful creatures that I've ever seen. What's more, this creature is not only huge, but it also has incredible teeth, long fangs, and full-blown apples of the eyes, just like people have. It's clearly something close to paranormal things. Despite the fact that it's long since the creature was discovered, they still didn't manage to define who that was. Specialists split into two groups. The first one tries to invent a name for the unknown creature that doesn't look like the rest of them. A second, on the contrary, is not going to make something up, and they've already classified this creature to anglerfish. According to what the latter think, this is more likely to be a mutant or, in extreme case, a representative of an unknown species to us. While you did not decide whom to support, I suggest that we take a peep at ordinary anglerfish and think on the subject of their similarity to our guest. So anglerfish, or Ceratioidae, are a suborder of ray-finned fish, living at great depths. In essence, you can encounter them in the whole of the world ocean. It's the first sign of a potentially new species. They inhabit a depth of up to 2 miles with a pressure of up to 300 atmospheres. Evidently, as fish exist so deep, they perfectly adapted to this. Alas, they underwent some changes in terms of their appearance. They could have been compressed, they could have been tilted, and so on, as if the monster washed ashore had been the result of deep water changes. As for teeth of this beast, it's a separate matter. The anglerfish also have them. They're not less frightening. However, they do not have such long fangs. Instead, anglerfish owe something they got their name from – a rod. It's a thin outgrowth that can light in the darkness. Due to this feature, they get fish underwater. They turn on the torch and wait until they visit it. Possibly, our monster took a different road, and it consciously avoided having a torch on its head. Instead, it prefers to follow all this due to its keen and big eyes, as well as hunt owing to its long fangs. What do you think? Is this scenario possible? Or does this creature have nothing in common with anglerfish? For better or worse, the natural mysteries did not run out on this. In South Carolina, people came across this unusual creature swimming along the shore. Judging by the clip, its shape resembles something like an underwater bird that moves along the water with the use of its wings and tail. The footage was almost instantly sent to the Department of Natural Resources in North Carolina. However, locals did not receive any proper answer. In contrast to the previous story, people didn't even find a potential analog to this creature. This is how strange it was. Alien guest. This is exactly what a man from the following story called the photo taken by the bank of the Pilcomayo River in Bolivia. According to what a man commented on the situation, he had not intended to film anything paranormal. He'd planned just to capture the riverbank. However, something from another planet got caught in the lens. The skin of this monster was as gray as ashes, and its reflection lacked. If they manage to confirm the authenticity of photos, it'll become the first official evidence to the existence of aliens. It's a separate matter how to do this. Those are them again. Yes, I mean aliens. A man from this story rested on the beach, and he quite accidentally found this curious shell in the sand. You must admit it did not look like any other shell of creatures that we know. Its shape resembles aliens from a terror film. I would possibly be afraid of even touching it. Fortunately, it's not me who made the discovery. The man did not only take a video of this monster, but he also brought it to the nearest research center and asked scientists to take a peep at the finding. This is where they responded to him that it was no alien, but a real horseshoe crab. These are representatives of the order of Chelicerata that have a long, sword-like spine located on the back end of their body. They were named after a massive spinal shield shaped like a horseshoe. They say horseshoe crabs can grow up to 24 inches long, and they existed about 440 to 480 million years ago. Surprisingly, the nearest relatives of horseshoe crabs are arachnids. Yes, they hardly have something in common now. This is just because the arachnids did not blow off evolution and they successfully adapted to new conditions. As they both have their body divided into the forebody and belly, What's more, all of them have chelicerae. This is where their similarities end. By the way, do you know what horseshoe crabs stand for? For their blood. It's not red, and it's not even nearly of this tinge. Their blood bears more resemblance to soda with blue syrup. Don't worry, it's not bad. In reality, such coloration is quite natural, as horseshoe crabs placed a bet on copper as part of their hemocyanin. It's a respiratory pigment from the group of complex proteins. By the way, their blood is highly valued and even placed in special jars. The thing is that it contains a unique protein that coagulates each time it contacts bacteria or toxins. Due to this peculiarity, horseshoe crabs hardly have any diseases. People use their blood to test equipment for sterility. That's why patients find themselves on operation tables quicker, and they're rescued. In other words, many lives are saved exactly due to the blood of these creatures. However, it's far from always when people can determine what creature they encounter. For example, in this story from sunny Brazil, residents of Casambu noticed a strange luminous creature not far away from the river that can quite be a native of other worlds. It may seem to have some humanoid features such as the head, shoulders, arms, and body. However, it's not clear who that could have been.
What the?
There are propositions about an alien or even an angel, though skeptics suppose that the unusual effect manifested itself as a result of the play of light and shadow. What do you think it could have been? Was it really one of the aliens, or did we see a usual mystification with a man in a costume? I suggest that we leave previous photos for experts. Let them be checked for authenticity. In the meantime, we look at things that are no fake anyway. This shocking monster was caught by an ordinary fisherman from Japan. In the photo, you can see a man holding an incredible fish that resembles a prehistoric monster. Surprisingly, how did he, altogether, manage to lift it? Leave a like if you would also not dare touch it. Though I'm sure that people that are acquainted with fishing did not find anything strange in this clip. After all, the man did not catch a mutant, but a quite large and ordinary Atlantic wolffish. This sea fish can grow up to 5 feet long and weigh more than 44 pounds. It's basically spread in the northern part of the Atlantic and Arctic Oceans. They say the Atlantic wolffish lives at a depth from 65 feet to 1,400 feet and feed on mollusks, echinoderms, crustaceans, and minnow. The most unusual things in this fish are, of course, its big jaw and teeth that would deserve a role in a terror film. They're located in rows with the front ones in the form of fangs. Such an unusual jaw structure lends to our fish the image of a frightening predator that's about to cut off a leg or an arm. These powerful jaws are capable of crashing the most robust shells. That's why the creature has no problems with food. Wolffish teeth wear out quickly like that of sharks. However, they're replaced by new ones. Change of teeth, as a rule, takes place in winter. This time, the fish hardly eats anything and lives mostly from supplies. Don't worry, as long as its teeth are ready for battles, it'll make up for the lost time without failure. Ancient artifact. What would you do without findings of the past, right? You can also find them on the beach. For example, archaeologists from Novosibirsk found such a strange statue. They dig it out on the bank of the Ob River. Interestingly, this figure was made from unknown material. Judging by preliminary analysis, its age is more than 5,000 years. The object resembles an ancient image of an Indian. However, researchers got interested not with the very artifact, but the history of its appearance on the territory of Siberia. Nothing similar used to be written anywhere. That's why it's likely that this artifact found its place there by accident. What does it seem to you? What for a figure is it? Who may it depict? Speaking of strange findings, why shouldn't we look at the Rubik's Cube? It was found on one of the pristine beaches of the USA. Surprisingly, the cube was made from an unknown material that allowed it to roll as an analogic compact model. Such objects are usually made for the sake of promotional campaigns or something like this. However, in this case, none of such companies reacted to these photos. One of the rarest cats on the planet, an unusual mouse deer, as well as a dog with an extremely shrill bark. Later on, you'll see rare photos of animals that have been considered extinct for a long time. Black Panther. The story of the Black Panther is worth starting with what it was in the first place. It's important to understand this is not a separate and distinct species, but a generic word referring to a black leopard or a black jaguar. In addition to their distinctive black color, their fur can be distinguished by unique spots that can be seen at close range. But I wouldn't get too hung up on this information if I were you, because black panthers are incredibly rare animals. So much so that until recently, people hadn't received any new information about them in over 100 years. Nevertheless, recently, on the territory of Kenya, scientists found a black leopard, even making a relevant photo. Of course, they photographed it not manually, but with the help of an elaborate automatic system. They were helped by high-quality motion sensors, a mirrorless camera, and several flashes. When someone passed in the area where they were working, the system would activate and take pictures. Of course, other animals were also caught on camera, but one night it also managed to capture an actual black panther. This work confirmed that black leopards exist in Africa. However, black panthers are quite rare there. Researchers are not sure if the genetic mutation that causes melanism in these big cats is the same one responsible for melanism in black panthers from Southeast Asia. Speaking of Southeast Asia, let's talk about the clouded leopard, the very feline which is considered to be quite ancient. Did you know that it has a very rare subspecies called the Formosan clouded leopard? By its habits and physical structure, it was similar to its relatives living in mainland China. It was a relatively small predator, weighing up to 44 pounds. It lived in trees. In the first description of the Formosan clouded leopard, scientists paid attention to its shorter tail. It was 2 times smaller than that of a common mainland clouded leopard. However, no one has been able to confirm this data. As you may have guessed, the subspecies has completely disappeared from the face of the earth. But be that as it may, hope springs eternal. People continued to search for this rare leopard and finally managed to find something interesting. After setting up surveillance cameras and reviewing the footage taken in the morning, the people were shocked because they'd taken footage of a Formosan clouded leopard. Yes, the footage doesn't show it from different angles or for long periods of time, but it's still better than nothing. Some of the skeptics kept saying that it was something else, but most agreed that this subspecies was alive after all. Now we need to find some better evidence and correct the pages of history. What happens if you cross a mouse and a deer? The result would be something very similar to a chevrotain, which is a cute animal. By the way, it's considered the smallest ungulate in the world. It looks like a rabbit and weighs up to 11 pounds. This endemic of Vietnam lives exclusively in dense forests. At the end of the 20th century, when technology was objectively worse, scientists were still able to somehow contact and study it. But for the last 30 years, there's been no information about the silverback chevrotain, also known as the Vietnam mouse deer. At one point, the creature was even included in the list of the world's rarest animals. But the mouse deer didn't last long in the top. In 2012, this baby was found. Scientists set up trap cameras deep in the jungle and checked the results after 5 months. The cameras captured that the mouse deer were really alive. In total, the specialists managed to get about 2,000 pictures with silverback chevrotains. There are several individuals on them, but scientists have not yet been able to estimate the exact size of the population. New Guinea singing dog. It turns out that people are able to find not only tiny creatures, but also quite normal-sized dogs. These include the New Guinea singing dog, which has not been seen in the wild at all since the 1970s. It's not hard to guess that these dogs are loved for their unique howls. Many compare the sounds they make to those of humpback whales. Now, about 200 to 300 individuals, caught about half a century ago, live in conservation centers and zoos. Specialists feared that there were no more of these animals left in the wild, but fortunately, the fears were unjustified. Already in 2016, people found a whole pack of these dogs, and a little later they took their biological samples just in case. The scientists confirmed the data. Now it remains to scrutinize the habits of these creatures and understand how they should be cared for. The plan is to fully restore the population. Madagascar chameleon. For many, if a creature has not been seen in about 50 years, it's something incredible, very rare, or ancient. But believe me, there are many cases in history when people have rediscovered creatures with longer periods of time. One such is the Madagascar chameleon, or the Voltskaus chameleon to be more precise. It's definitely avoided contact with people since 1913. It's obvious that during this time it was classified as an extinct creature, but people were wrong. In 2018, scientists traveled to Madagascar and decided to explore the territories that they had not touched before. This tactic paid off immediately. After exploring just 6 spots, the people found this very rare species. It lived in the garden of a hotel in the settlement of Catesby. In total, there were several males and more than a dozen females. Thus, the people not only confirmed the existence of the chameleon species that had long been missing, but also managed to describe it a little. It was found out that females are smaller than males and change colors more actively. If the males remain green most of the time, then the females sometimes acquire a very bright and contrasting color. It's still a mystery what else can this chameleon surprise us with and how widely it's spread. The scientists have to find it out. But the fact that the creature is alive cannot help but please. Somali elephant shrew. See this cute little shrew? It feels like this insect-eating mammal just couldn't help but catch people's eyes. It's too cute and funny for humans to stop being interested in it. However, things don't always go according to our plan. At one point, the Somali elephant shrew decided to hide from the whole world and didn't appear for more than 50 years. This tiny animal must have been literally and figuratively running away from the troubles all the time. It's not for nothing that it runs at a speed of almost 19 miles an hour. However, the main trick of the animal is not even this one. You've probably already paid attention to its funny nose. It's with this trunk that it hunts insects. These shrews differ from their other relatives with a small furry tassel on their tail. It took a long time to find them, until in 2020, researchers took the first and long-awaited picture of the creature in its natural habitat. In order to find the cunning creature, it was necessary to use the forces of hundreds of scientists. It was an entire expedition that simply could not end in failure. In total, the team observed 12 Somali elephant shrews and came to an important conclusion. Apparently, these animals are not on the verge of extinction after all and are thriving in Djibouti, as well as probably in Somalia and even Ethiopia, although the size of the population is still difficult to estimate. Unexpected encounter. This story took place in the fall of 2020. Two friends were walking through the forest in the Indonesian province of South Kalimantan and accidentally came across a bird unknown to them. They decided to take a few photos to remember so they could learn more about it later. After the walk, the guys went to the scientists they knew and showed them the pictures. And now, imagine the face of an expert who recognized in this bird a very rare species, which was last seen only in the middle of the 19th century. The pictures showed a black-browed babbler. After learning that these birds did live there, a whole group of researchers went to the same forest. The expedition had one single goal: to find and record the feathered one. In the end, the people managed to find 2 black-browed babblers hiding in a dense bush growing near a rocky cliff. They were very quiet, which is probably why they'd not been spotted for over 170 years. The team managed not only to photograph the black-browed babblers, but also to take video footage of them. All the new data obtained will allow scientists to learn much more about the behavior of these particular birds and all birds in general. In the future, scientists plan to assess their habitat. It's possible that these species is small in number and is under threat of extinction. In this case, it will need reliable protection. Black-naped pheasant pigeon. This bird was also not reported for quite a long time, about 140 years, until 2022, an expedition of researchers from Cornell University was able to confirm the existence of a subspecies of the black-naped pheasant pigeon. And it happened completely spontaneously, but it ended up in obtaining unique footage, consisting of both individual images and full-fledged videos. The filmed clips became the first for a long time, although it seems that it was impossible not to notice this large bird with such a bright plumage. However, nothing is known about the feathered one, so it's quite possible that it is capable of such things, which we don't even guess yet. Only time will tell us. Many of us have seen animal documentaries. Next, I'll show you how they're made. There are many different techniques and ways to film animals in the wild. It all depends on the animals themselves, as well as the location where the shooting takes place. The first technique is the simplest, but also one of the most difficult. Cameramen call it approach shooting. The idea is simple. The cameraman gets as close to the animals as possible and film it without using any protection. This technique allows photographers and cameramen to easily change angles, sit or lie down to get new footage, and basically use the camera as efficiently and creatively as possible. This technique is often used to shoot birds. It can be harmless birds, birds of prey, or even some large birds. There are not so many birds in the world that can attack a person, so this technique is effective. In addition, various animals that are already accustomed to people or do not pose a great danger to them are filmed in this way. Basically, these are different ungulates. And the most curious, in terms of approach shooting, are meerkats. Although predatory, these animals are very small, curious, and not aggressive towards humans. So instead of attacking, they often approach cameramen, stare at the camera lens, or even climb on the camera or the cameraman, putting on a show. Approach shooting can be combined with camouflage. The essence is the same. The cameraman is still as close to the animals as possible, but they can be in sniper camouflage or hiding in some improvised booth, which is organically built into the habitat of the animal and does not confuse them. Protection. However, wild animals are unpredictable, and approach shooting doesn't always work. And if we're talking about predators from Africa, then approach shooting is very dangerous. Cameramen need protection. It may seem unusual, but most footage featuring lions, leopards, hyenas, and other dangerous animals are taken from a car. But this car isn't exactly ordinary. First, it must be passable. Second, it must be reinforced in case of animal attacks. And for the cameras, they're usually hung outside the car and installed in such a way that they cover the maximum view and give the best quality. These cameras are operated directly from the car. Sometimes, however, they can film animals directly from the vehicle, as tourists do on safari. To keep the picture from shaking, cameramen use stabilizers. And to keep the quality good, it's necessary to set the light well. Shooting from a protected car is certainly a good thing, but this method can't always be used. There are places where a car simply won't go in, or it will be dangerous to drive it. For example, the Arctic. Unlike lions in Africa, polar bears and walruses are not used to cars, and the shooting can be failed. As an option, people can shoot from a great distance or use a protected cage. It's installed in the right place. The cameraman goes there and shoots the animals on camera. However, sometimes bears attack these cages, but people get even better and cooler footage. The same thing is sometimes done in Africa to shoot lions at close range as naturally as possible. In this case, the cage or the camera can be covered with meat as bait, so that the predators themselves come to the shooting. There's also another option, the safest one. Simply place the cameras in the right place and wait. After a day or two, the cameramen come back, take the cameras, and watch the footage. On the plus side, you can see the most natural behavior of animals because people do not confuse them and they have no idea that they're filmed. On the downside, it's usually unrealistic to control the shooting in such a case, and it takes a lot of time to view and select the right moments. Luckily, we live in an era of modern technology, so the people on the film crew don't have to risk their lives or spend hours setting up cameras in the wild at all. They can use robots. Many modern animal documentaries are made with their help. First of all, I'm talking about robot tanks. These are small mobile devices with cameras which are incredibly durable. No predator will break them. A human controls the robot, which quietly and carefully approaches dangerous animals and shoots interesting details of their lives. The main thing in this kind of filming is not to scare the animals. First, the robot must be introduced to them. People need to show that it's safe. After that, the animals stop paying attention to it and continue to behave naturally. You can go even further and use robotic animals. These are devices in the form of different animals equipped with cameras. The main advantage of such robots is that the animals perceive them as other animals, their congeners or enemies. As a result, the animals behave naturally, and this is very important for shooting high-quality material. For example, people can use a robot in the form of birds to film birds. It can also be used to film how the prey behaves at the sight of a dangerous bird. Gorillas, which have a bad attitude toward any strangers, are filmed by gorilla robots. The same can be said for other apes. Sometimes such filming reveals surprising details and new facts about the life of primates. For example, they can grieve for their dead relatives as well as humans. In addition, robotic animals are great for capturing dangerous footage of large animals or predators. For example, in this case to film the shark hunting, the cameraman used an ordinary camera, a camera inside a robot seal, and a robot bird that filmed everything from above. Thanks to this, the shark didn't realize that everything was staged and behaved naturally, giving us some cool footage of the hunt. And here the film crew used a robot hare to show how the eagle hunts. But there are other methods used for filming these birds. Like GoPro cameras. What? Did you think only humans can take footage using them? Animals are just as good. All you need to do is find the animal you want to film, attach a GoPro to it, and let it go. Then it'll become a cameraman, or a camera animal to be more precise, and do all the work. This works best with birds. No cameraman or drone can get as high and fly as beautifully as the bird itself. Footage of such flights will make any documentary better and more impressive, even the most boring one. GoPro can also be used on land animals, for example on various predators. If you do everything carefully and correctly and equip a cheetah or even a lion with a GoPro, you can get point-of-view footage of hunting, and that's worth a lot. No cameraman can capture something like this on their own. However, sometimes animals can do it without people. Big wild cats, being very curious creatures, can steal the camera, which was hidden somewhere in the thicket, and start their video blog about life in the wild. Sometimes editors can save this footage and add it into documentaries. In this way, you can also film the life of underwater or semi-underwater inhabitants. The principle's the same. You attach the camera to some harmless fish or even a shark, track it, and wait for it to come back with unique footage. Drones. Drones are an integral part of many documentaries. All these videos from high altitudes, all the flybys and long shots, all the footage that show huge herds of animals from above, everything is filmed with the help of drones. Interestingly enough, in the past, this kind of thing was filmed with the help of a helicopter in which the film crew landed. However, occasionally it's still done today. However, helicopters are very noisy, so it's not very profitable to shoot from them. They scare the animals and often spoil the footage. Drones are relatively quiet and small. Animals may not even notice them, thanks to which we get very interesting and beautiful footage. Everything seems to be clear with land animals and birds. But what about underwater footage? There are documentaries about all sorts of whales, sharks, and unusual fish. How are they made? Exactly as you might think. They're made by people. A crew member puts on a diving suit, picks up a camera, and dives underwater. There they film the local flora and fauna. If the sea or river inhabitants are safe, the diver cameraman may not even need to be assisted. But if it's about filming dangerous predators, then they may need support from above. People who can chase away the threat if something bad happens. A cage may also be used in underwater filming. Today, you've already seen how cameramen shoot bears and lions at close range, sitting in cages. Here, the principle's the same. In general, such cages are usually used by ordinary divers who want to experience new sensations and see dangerous marine animals up close. But they can also be used by cameramen with professional cameras. Of course, other tricks are also used. For example, filming under ice is sometimes done with the help of a special camera, which is placed on a kind of rails in the middle of cracked ice. And footage of marine animals near the surface of the water can be captured from a boat or a ship equipped with cameras. Such cameras can be static or rotate only in the horizontal plane, or they can be more sophisticated. In this case, people can lower them into the water and take footage directly from the deck without fear of predator attack. That's about it. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel.